Welcome to the Be Free and Rise show, where we break free from bipolar depression and rise up as self-healers. I am your host, Tiffany Jean Taylor. I have self-healed from bipolar depression. Now I am coaching you to create a lifestyle of mental wellness so that you can live a life of mental freedom. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Be Free and Rise show. On today's episode, I wanted to go over the importance of living a lifestyle of mental wellness to enable our body's natural capability of self-healing. You see, our body cannot heal if it does not feel supported in the natural healing process. So we have to communicate safety and security and support to our mental health in order for it to expose and step into that natural self-healing process. Going back to the cast on the broken arm, the cast is protecting and keeping your arm safe as it goes through its natural healing capabilities, right? That cast is not the healer. The cast on your arm is not going to be what exactly causes the healing and the mending of your bone itself. That's your body. That is your body's natural innate capabilities, is to mend that broken bone on its own. But the cast provides it with foundational support and protection to keep it safe and secure while it goes through that healing period. So imagine, if you are not putting your arm in that cast, your arm is liable to be smacked up against the door, smacked up against the wall, to be hurt further. And every time that you would expose it to some kind of pressure or pain, it's going to bruise it further and further, and it's going to cause more and more damages, right? So that cast is that barrier to protect the bone so that it doesn't cause any more damages. But also, if you're not allowing that arm to rest and you're just using it as normal, going through all of the normal functionalities, it still can't heal, right? It needs to be rested, safe, secure, and protected to go through the healing process. And that's what the cast is doing on your arm. So just like our arm needs a foundational support to heal, so does our mental and our emotional health. And I like to refer to the cast of our self-healing as a lifestyle of mental wellness to support you in embarking on your self-healing journey so that you feel safe enough and secure enough to expose all of the things that need to be seen, felt, and heard. The lifestyle that you are living is like the brace to your mental healing. Your lifestyle is what triggers safety to your brain, to your body, so that it can naturally sit down, settle down, and feel rested enough to expose roots of your symptomatic manifestations. Because on the flip side, if we're not living a lifestyle that's going to be supportive of our self-healing process, then the contrary to that would be living a lifestyle that is going to cause further damages, cause further symptomatic manifestations to be triggered, and kind of essentially enabling our mental illness to continue to manifest. I would also pretty much guarantee that every single one of us who are suffering from symptomatic manifestations and we are actively living out the suffering of mental illness, I would almost guarantee that we are all living in survival mode. And we just simply cannot heal while we're living in survival mode. Because if we're living in survival mode, that means our entire being is committed to simply just keeping us alive. And so all of our energy is going to be expended in that way of survival rather than healing. When we're in survival mode, there's certain parts of our body that is shut down, and they're kind of triggered into this survival mechanics. So, all of our energy is going to be expended and exhausted in just keeping us alive, looking out for danger, protecting us. We are put into a protective mechanism, which means certain things like our metabolism may be slowed down. We may be sleeping extra because our body is just simply tired and exhausted. There's different parts of our body that's not going to be functioning the way that it would be functioning. For instance, if we don't feel safe enough, our amygdala is always going to be in charge, and if our amygdala is in charge, which is the back of our brain that is in charge of keeping us safe at all cost. I like to call our amygdala like our built-in security system for our house, right? We have a security system for a house that sets off an alarm whenever something is happening, like a door is open or a window is opening, to signal danger to our house so that we can go and protect our house. Well, that's what our amygdala does to our body. And the amygdala's job is to always be on the lookout for possible dangers and threats to us and our body. Well, when we are in survival mode, that amygdala is always what is working. That amygdala is the dominant part of our brain that is operating. And we call this amygdala hijack, where we are operating in that place of survival mode. And what happens when we are in amygdala hijack is that the other parts of our brain, they actually shut down and they're not operating anymore because that amygdala has come into dominance. So the thinking part of your brain has been shut down, the rational part of your brain has been shut down, the creative part of you has been shut down, your imagination has been shut down, the decision making part of you is shut down when this amygdala is in dominance. So if you are dominating in this survival mode, there's not going to be the other part of your brain that you need to go in and utilize to embark on that self-healing journey. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't have the rational thinking that you need to go through that self-healing process, nor are you going to feel safe enough to connect with yourself and feel your feelings, right? If your amygdala is in charge and your amygdala alarm is going off saying danger, danger, danger because you're in survival mode, it's surely not going to allow you to feel the feelings that you need or express the emotions that you need to express. That amygdala is the primal part of your brain, okay? So I want to explain it to you guys in this way, is that imagine that you are running through the forest right now and you are being chased by a tiger in the wild, that tiger is back there, it's behind you. Well, you can feel and you can tell that, a couple miles back you fell down off of the rock and you broke your arm. You're pouring out blood, there's blood gushing everywhere on your arm, and you want to, like, you think, man, I should probably look at my arm, but you can't, because if you stop and you address your broken arm and you put dressing on it and you fix it, that tiger is going to attack you. So you have to keep running instead of looking at your broken arm to get away from that tiger and survive from that tiger, right? That is you being in survival mode. And just like you can't stop and look at your arm in the middle of that chase, if you are naturally walking through life right now stuck in that survival mode, you can't stop and look at the woundings and the programmings and the perceptions and the ill mindsets that you have. You can't stop and investigate your symptomatic manifestations to figure out where they're coming from, because you literally just don't have time. You don't have energy. You don't have the brain power to stop and go into self-healing to address your mental illness and your symptomatic manifestations, because every part of your being is exhausted by keeping you alive in survival mode. This survival mode is also the home base of those trauma responses. And the different trauma responses that we have in that primal part of our brain are the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn trauma responses. And you can kind of compare these and look at these in the perspective of like what animals do, because it is that primal part of our brain. And I'm going to explain these a little bit today. I could probably do a whole episode going over these trauma responses, and I'll probably do that in the future, because this is a big part of your self-healing journey too, is to kind of figure out what trauma responses that you're dealing with so that you can break the habit of those trauma responses. But fight is literally when you go into this defensive mechanism and you want to fight back and you want to push back to defend yourself. And it doesn't have to just be a physical fight, it can be a mental fight, it can be your ego going into fight mode to protect you, okay? Flight is running from that tiger that's in the bear, like, or running from that tiger that is in the forest. That would be your flight trauma response. Whenever you see something that triggers danger and makes you feel like a threat, you run away from that danger. Freeze trauma response is you freezing up and going into a self-preservation and self-protective mode. Imagine a turtle. When a turtle feels and sees a threat, it is going to pull all of its extremities inside of its shell, and it's going to protect itself inside of the shell from the danger. That is freeze trauma response. This is the one that I was most dominant in. To be quite honest, I feel like throughout my duration of struggling with mental illness, I would swing from one to the next, but this freeze trauma response was the one that I was dominant in. It is the way that my brain always operated. And then there's fawn trauma response, which is not one that's thrown around a whole lot. But the fawn, imagine a chameleon. A chameleon will blend in with his surroundings so that he's not seen by his threat. So a fawn is going to be your character traits adjusting to the perceived threat around you so that you will not be singled out in that dangerous moment. So, in your self healing journey, it's very important for you to create a lifestyle of mental wellness so that you will feel safe and secure enough to step out of that survival mode so that your body will not be exhausted in all of its energies put forth to you just merely surviving and keeping yourself alive. And these are all things that we do inside of my group coaching membership. We actually have a daily challenge where we all come together and we empower and support each other to be consistent with the habits that we need to take to create this new lifestyle of mental wellness. And what I mean by this is that there are simple things that we can do every day that is going to signal safety and security to our body. Going back, imagine, an infant that is crying, and they have been in their crib crying, and they waiting for their mom to come in, and as soon as their mom picks them up, they start calming down and soothing down because their mom just signaled safety and security to them. So now they can step out of that survival crying mode where they're screaming out for help, right? That's safety and security to them. So inside of my group membership, I teach you guys how you can signal the safety and security to your body. I teach you all of the simple habits that you can take every day to transition out of that survival mode and into this feeling of safety and security so that you can create that brace, that foundational support that you need to embark on your self-healing journey. If this is something that resonates with you and you could really use support and help in this area, I invite you to come along and join inside of our membership so that you can receive the guidance that you need. You can get there by clicking the link in the show notes, or you can go to tiffanyjeantaylor.com/links. Hey, I know how uncomfortable the self-healing journey can be, and you're probably searching for a holistic, natural remedy to ease those discomforts. So I want to share with you an all-natural remedy that I personally love. Something that I keep inside of my mental wellness pantry at all times is a herb called rhodiola rosea. It is an aptogenic herb that reduces your body's cortisol production and prevents your body from overreacting to stress. It helps you to stay calm and collected, providing you with a wider capacity to remain regulated and step away from overstimulation. Rhodiola rosea has been recognized for its antidepressant and energy boosting effects. You can shop this herbal remedy by clicking the link in the show notes or going to tiffanyjeantaylor.com/links. There's a time in our self healing journey that we have to be honest with ourselves and we have to be willing to admit our own role in our suffering and our own role in our mental illness. And I understand that this can be really hard and it's not an easy pill to swallow. But as your mental wellness coach, it's kind of my duty to serve you in this way with honesty and transparency and to kind of speak to your blind spots. But I'll kind of put the pressure on myself to share with you different examples and ways that you can be contributing to your mental illness. And what I mean by that is that there are certain habits that you're living and lifestyles that you're living and decisions that you're making or choices that you're making or not taking that are enabling your symptomatic manifestations to occur. So for me, this looked like alcoholism. I used alcohol for over 20 years to numb out and dissociate from all of my problems. And so this would numb out the depression. This would numb out me having to look at all of the roots of my symptomatic manifestations. And surely it would do that during the time of me drinking alcohol, right? I would feel better in the moment. But then when it came the next day, oh, you know, havoc would be wreaked. All hell would break loose because I'm now experienced the come down from that high of being, using alcohol. And so alcohol triggered this up, down effect that contributed to the up, down of my bipolar depression, right? Alcohol was never something for me that enabled mental wellness to exist in my life. It was purely an enabling factor of mental illness to exist in my life. Another part of my story was always running from my problems. There was a big chapter in my life that I was traveling far too much. You could say that I had a traveling addiction. I was gone every single weekend, and this was me doing that flight trauma response and running from my problems weekend after weekend after weekend. And while I was on vacation, I was not making good decisions. I was not putting myself in good, healthy environments. I was not surrounding myself with positive, uplifting relationships. So I had to hold myself accountable and say, hey, you are enabling all of your symptomatic manifestations. This was me enabling my mania to exist because this was a manic tendency for me, was to go on these erotic vacations and just run from my problems all the time. Like, this was a symptom of my mania. And by me making the decision and allowing myself to constantly be traveling and constantly be running from my problems, and enabled me to go in that high peak of my mania. So I had to stop and create some self-discipline and some self-regulation in that, and saying enough is enough. When I was in the deep of my mania, all of my relationships enabled my mania. I don't know that there was a single one that would contribute to me regulating my feelings and emotions. They were all unhealthy, toxic relationships that would enable me to make bad choices and bad decisions that would just exemplify my manic tendencies. And that was something that I had to hold myself responsible for. So there is an environmental role in your mental illness. There are environments that you are putting yourself in right now that are contributing to the symptomatic manifestations within your life. There is a relational role that takes part in your mental illness. There are relationships that you have in your life that are going to contribute to the symptomatic manifestations. There is a habitual role that plays out in your symptomatic manifestations. There are habits that you are taking and making every single day that is contributing to your mental illness. And a habit for me was, in the thick of my depressive episodes, I would always just allow myself to lay in bed day after day after day. The times that I was bedridden, or even in chapters where I wasn't completely bedridden, but I would allow myself to sleep for 10 hours a day, or I would allow myself to take a 4-hour nap. Those were habits that I was allowing myself to have that enabled my depression to exist, right? Because for me, those were characteristics that went together. Depression and sleeping too much went together for me. Depression and laying in my bed, they went hand in hand together. And so I had to come and hold myself responsible for that habit that I was allowing myself to create. And then with self discipline, I had to break that habit to help enable myself to step and walk out of that depressive episode. Self healing is you literally on becoming this lifestyle of mental illness that you have been allowing yourself to live. And yeah, a lot of it is unconscious. A lot of it is unconscious. We don't realize that the lifestyle that we are living is enabling our mental illness to exist because we were never taught any different. If we were taught how to be mentally well, we would not be mentally ill right now, you know? So we have to literally teach ourselves how to start living a different lifestyle that is going to enable mental wellness to exist. We have to teach ourselves how to live a lifestyle of mental wellness to support our natural self healing capabilities for our mental and emotional well being. What is a mentally well lifestyle? For those of us that have never done that before, we have no idea what it looks like and how to create it for ourselves. A healthy lifestyle is a safe and healthy environment. Is the environments that you're putting yourself in right now, do they make you feel safe? Are they enabling mental wellness to exist in your life? Do the environments that you put yourself in every day, would they encourage your self-healing process to occur? And your environments is the house that you live in. It is the family homes that you go and visit. It is your work environment. It is your social environments. It is your church environment. It is all of these places and spaces that you go. How are these environments impacting your mental health? Then there are your relationships. Do you have healthy and safe relationships that are enabling mental wellness to exist in your life? Do your relationships make you feel safe enough that you would be able to embark on your self healing journey? Or are your relationships toxic? Do your relationships have unhealthy characteristics? Are they abusive? Are they neglectful? Do your relationships consist with people who just talk poorly and negatively and just gossip about other people all of the time? Like in these relationships, how are these relationships making you feel about yourself? Do these relationships support your mental illness or do they support your mental wellness? Then there are these simple and free habits that we have literally at our fingertips that we can incorporate every single day to boost our dopamine and serotonin production within our body that is going to enable us to create that mental wellness lifestyle, which is going to enable our self healing process to occur. And these are simple things like getting out in the sunlight, getting fresh air, getting grounded with nature, feeling the grass on our toes. And all of that, you guys, is also going to signal to our amygdala this feeling of safety and security. Because when you hear those birds chirping outside, that communicates safety and regulation to your nervous system. When you can look outside and you can see the beautiful atmosphere and the beautiful nature, that communicates to your nervous system regulation and calmness and soothing feelings. And so these are simple things and habits that we can do every single day. Some more examples is eating healthy, being hydrated, creating good choices, making good decisions, doing all of the right things, not none of the bad things. Getting exercise versus laying around, because exercise naturally boosts your dopamine. Getting healthy, productive rest versus overworking, because overworking can be a dissociative, mechanism for you to numb out and run from your problems. So alternatively, are you allowing yourself to get healthy and productive rest? Healthy socialization versus toxic conversations. Who are the people that you're talking with? What are the conversations that you are having? Do these conversations enable mental wellness, or do they enable mental illness? Sobriety versus numbing out and dissociating from your problems. Therapies, cold therapy, somatic experiencing, EFT tapping, EMDR, self-concept work, self-connection, embracing your feelings, embracing your emotions, safe and healthy emotional expression, journaling, prayer, meditation, yoga, co-regulation with other people that help you to feel safe and secure. These are all simple everyday tasks that you can do to maintain that lifestyle to support your self-healing process. And this is what I mean by mental wellness being that foundational support for you to feel safe and secure in that process. So I hope this episode gave you an insight on simple changes that you can start implementing tomorrow to make change in your lifestyle and habits to create self-healing in your life so that you can feel supported to start walking towards mental wellness and abandon the suffering that you've been living. I hope that you've been inspired and empowered on this week's episode. And thank you for joining me today. I cannot wait to connect with you next week. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Be Free and Rise Show. If you have enjoyed this episode and you are getting value from listening, it would mean the world to me if you gave back by writing me a review or sharing my podcast with someone who you know would benefit from it. Don't forget, if you're feeling alone and isolated on your journey, you have the opportunity to join my self-healing membership. The Overcomer Circle is a community of like minds who are committed to doing the inner work to holistically heal from mental illness and rise up as self-healers. It's a space for you to feel empowered with faith that healing is possible, while also being supported by a village of humans who understand what you're going through. This community is led by yours truly, so you will get exclusive access to my mentorship and coaching. You can join the Overcomer Circle by clicking the link in the show notes or going to tiffanyjeantaylor.com/links.